All right, well, I want to welcome everybody to our Knowledge at Noon today. Thank you everybody for coming to this. And today our topic is trends, a new audience buying behaviors impacting businesses. Today our moderator is going to be Linda Welter. She is the CEO and principal of the Caliber Group. It's a Tucson-based brand positioning and crisis issues management firm. It provides business consulting, leadership management, marketing, PR strategy, and helps businesses reposition and build value during challenging times like right now. Linda is also a Tucson Metro Chamber board member, and she'll introduce our guest speaker and moderate the Q&A portion of our presentation today. If you do have any questions, I ask that you please use the chat feature, and I will forward those on to Linda. So thank you very much, and Linda, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Well, it is my absolute great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today. Dre Thompson is the Executive VP at Startup Tucson, and also in her spare time is the Festival Director at 10 West Impact Festival. She has a very diverse background in community development, research and education, startup businesses, and also creative entrepreneurship. Dre's work prior includes owning her own creative agency. She was also research faculty at New York University Department of Population Health. And if that wasn't enough, she was also a researcher at the Chicago-based social science think tank, Chapin Hall, as well as numerous nonprofits and social service agencies. Dre has a master's degree in social science from the University of Chicago. She serves as the governance chair on the board of Tucson Young Professionals. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dre to talk about new audience buying behaviors impacting businesses and what that might mean for all of us as we're navigating these crazy times right now in our businesses. So, Dre.
Thank you so much for that very kind introduction. And thank you everyone for being here today. I'm very excited about this. This is actually kind of part one of a series. And that all kind of came up. A number of businesses were saying, hey, we keep hearing we've got to pivot, but actually how do we do that? So this is actually kind of part one. So there's a number of great speakers that will be coming in the following week. So I hope that you do tune in that. I'm really going to be focusing on this idea of understanding your customer. And right now our customer is acting crazy, so all the consumer data that we've had is really changing. So this is really the point of this session today is really going to talk about, okay, what are we seeing at a high level? What are the trends we're seeing? And then we're going to get real tactical and talk about how can we implement that in your business strategy as you're going forward. So I'm going to snag the screen here if that's all right. It says host has disabled screen sharing. So if you can just do that, I will, I'll do that. Am I good to go? I'll try again? No? Okay. So before I get started on this, I'll just wait for that to go. I'll keep trying it periodically. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what Startup Tucson does, in case you have not heard of us. So Startup Tucson, oh wait, is it working? Do I have to do something besides, it's still saying disabled.
Michael, do you know, it shows green to me. Sorry guys, I apologize. He's trying to.
All right. So I'll just keep chattering until we figure this out. Okay, so Startup Tucson is a nonprofit that supports entrepreneurs in Southern Arizona. We really do this through free networking events, a lot of education. We do ecosystem building. Okay, wait, it looks like they're working on it. Okay, we have a free membership program that we're a part of. We also do Southern Arizona's largest pitch competition, which is Idea Funding, which is a part of 10 West Festival, which is sort of Startup Tucson's signature annual event. All right, we're good, folks. Okay.
Yeah, great.
Okay, cool. And I'm gonna go back to this so you can see the pretty trend slide. Okay, there we go. That's all we need. Okay, So something else about Startup Tucson that you might not know, that we're industry agnostic. So we serve creative entrepreneurs, nonprofits, technology, brick and mortar stores, consumer projects, SaaS, all the different types of companies. And we really focus on sort of wraparound services at every stage, but we really focus on early stage companies that are in the early steps of building their business. And our main focus as an organization is reducing the risk. So this actually falls really in line of what we're going to be talking about today. We already know that building a business is risky, even more so right now. So how can we mitigate the possible risk that we have so that we can be healthier, we can save money, and we can have a vibrant economic development of our region. Just a quick overview of our program. So we basically have stacked program education. So each of the courses are 2 hours and they build on each other. It's a great intro to all these sessions. And then we also have, as part of this, ongoing free mentoring and coaching. So if you're interested in that, this is a service that you can take advantage of your business. And we are super excited to be partnered with the Tucson Metro Chamber. They're one of our strongest partners. So, all right, so a little bit about what we're going to be doing today. So we know that we know that consumers have changed their buying behaviors during the stay at home. There's big questions. Okay, will this persist? What's going to persist after things start to open up? And we've been seeing really interesting data that 45% of consumers say that their spending and purchasing behaviors have changed permanently. So we want to know more about that and really tease that apart. So during this session today, we're going to talk a little bit about kind of laying the foundation for building customer empathy and really how to build a business strategy and a pivot strategy using that as the foundation. So this is why this is the intro course, because that's really going to be the key to all the next steps that are going to come from that. And you heard in the introduction, I love research. So there's sort of a blend of research, but also best practices for understanding your customer and how to really integrate that into really tactical ways in your business. I would like to know a little bit more about the businesses that are represented here on the call. So Michael, I think you have control of it now. If it won't get too hairy, would you mind calling out folks by name, and just if everyone wouldn't mind just saying your name and your business, just so that we can have a sense of who's on the call.
Okay. Diana.
Diana?
Hi. Sorry, I was muted. I'm with the nonprofit social services taking people out of poverty with the food bank.
Very good. Thank you, Diana. J Knapp, 160.
Just remember to unmute. There he goes. Jay? Should we come back to Jay?
Yeah, let's do that. So L. Coble.
I'm Let Coble with station manager here at KMSB Fox 11 and KTTU My 18. So broadcast multimedia.
Cool, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Matt Thrower.
Hi, Matt Thrower from DPR Construction. So we're a nationwide and also international commercial builder specializing in commercial, higher ed, healthcare, events, tech, and life sciences industries.
Thank you, Matt. Linda McCollum.
I'm with the Pima County Attorney's Office 88 Crime Program.
Linda, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And then let's see, we have Kanisha, Liz, and Sophia from Startup Tucson.
Hey, Startup Tucson.
Is in the house. We have Shirley, Carrie, Adam, myself, and Jason from the chamber.
Cool. All
and
right.
then obviously Linda and Carrie from Caliber.
Okay, awesome. All right, good. So that's really helpful. Thanks for letting me know what businesses you're in, and if there's any way I can tailor it, I will go ahead and do that. Okay, so kind of diving right in here, building business resilience really begins with understanding your customer. And we'll say this again and again in all of the Startup Tucson programming that we do. That's really got to be the foundation of really understanding who it is that you're targeting, and how you're targeting, what messages are you sending to them. And that's actually even more prevalent now. And we have some really cool data that helps us understand which ones are maybe the most likely to be purchasing at this time. So we'll look at that. And just kind of along that note, so companies have already been struggling to keep up with the changing customer behavior. So as new technologies are integrated into the work that we're doing, consumer behaviors have been changing a lot, but now it's even more critical for us to learn how to respond to that. So from that very high level, there's an organization called Deloitte, and they've been doing research from the very beginning of the pandemic all the way throughout, and they're going to continue to do so, and they have a ton of data on there. At the last slide, I have a link to that, so you can look up if you want to continue to follow this. So just very high level, people are starting to feel a little bit, the concern about losing the jobs have actually gone down a bit. Returning to workplace has stayed a little bit neutral. People are feeling a little safer going to stores. They're feeling about the same in terms of going to restaurants, going to in-person events, going to in-person services. They're feeling a little more comfortable staying in a hotel and a little bit more comfortable taking a flight. And then what are folks purchasing? So we've seen food and beverage start to increase. We've seen gift and specialty items start to go through. That's sort of those comfort items that people are looking for. Apparel and accessories are starting to go up. Toys and games have gone up. Home and garden have gone up. Those have been the major categories that we've seen increases. But what's really important to understand is these are averages. So this is where you really want to get into the actual customer segments. So customers are not actually reacting to the pandemic during and or immediately after. So this is where we want to get into how do you prioritize your outreach to folks that are most likely and interested in spending right now. So this organization has done, they basically have been categorizing how people's purchasing behaviors have been during the pandemic, and we've sort of categorized them into 4 sections, right? So there's the save and stockpile. So this is 35% of consumers. They're not actually as concerned about the pandemic, but they are worried about their families. That's kind of their main key pain point. And they're very pessimistic about the long-term effects. They're thinking they're hunkering down. This is going to go on for a while, so they're very much in that stockpile mode. So the cut deep, those are 27% of consumers. These are going to be the ones that have been hardest hit by the pandemic. They're in industries that are really either laying them off or furloughing them. They are very pessimistic about the future. They are seeing that this is going to be a long economic toll on them, and they are really not purchasing. They've made huge cuts into the way that they're actually they're spending right now. The stay calm and carry on, this is 26% of consumers. They are not really changing their behaviors at all. They have not really seen themselves impacted by the pandemic. They are a little bit worried that other people are stockpiling, but in general, they're pretty much, their behaviors have been fairly consistent. And then there's this really interesting percent. This is 11% of consumers. So they are the most concerned about the pandemic, but conversely, the less impacted by the pandemic. They are optimistic about the future. They think they're going to come roaring back. They're already planning their vacations. They are already excited about going to events. They are ready for this, and they're really well positioned to continue to spend across the board. And you can see that how that directly impacts. So when we were saying, different areas have gone up and certain areas have gone down, you can see that it's very important to see, the critical nature of the customer segment that you're looking at, because their behaviors are very different. So you can see, actually, as a matter of fact, 24% of the hibernate and spend have actually spending more in leisure activities. They're actually 20% is spending more on clothing and footwear. They're spending way more on groceries. Maybe they're making artisanal bread. I don't know what they're doing, but so you can really see that why it's so critical to not just kind of paint all customers over in the same lens, but really dig deep into who are these people, how are they feeling about the pandemic, and how is that going to impact their decisions to come. So thinking about your core customer base, this is kind of a little thought exercise for you. What category do you really think your customers really fall into? And kind of thinking about that, looking back at these 4 categories, how is that going to impact your messaging, your outreach to them? Because this really helps us understand how they're feeling, and so you want to really tailor your messaging to them. And then kind of adding on top of that, if we do see that, you know, there is a segment that is ready and excited to hand over their money, okay, how can we actually, what can you offer value to these high priority segments? How can you reposition the work that you're doing? If you sort of tend to work in one customer segment, how can you sort of start to offer things to folks that are in the best position to purchase in the coming months? So a quick spotlight on these hibernate and spend folks, just so you have a better sense of who they are. They are 18 to 44. They are, so it's kind of millennial-ish. They are very concerned about the pandemic. They are 60% are not shopping less frequently. 43% say products they purchase have changed significantly, and this is important. And then 46% say brands are more important to them than ever. And we're going to talk about that. And they are the category that is most likely to bounce back with a bang. The ideal customers that you want to be targeting. Okay, so they had mentioned that brand was really important. When you start to pull that back a little bit, so 62% are saying they're more likely to purchase from companies that they feel good, are doing good for society. And you know, that could be because they have more time to do research. That could be because people are feeling concerned for the well-being of their communities, and they want to feel that their purchasing dollars are actually going to help. And they sort of understand that it's their sort of civic duty to purchase, and they want to make sure that their money is getting the bang for the buck. They are willing to pay a premium for brands that contribute to communities, and they are willing to really try to shop local. And they're willing to pay a premium price for domestically produced goods. Okay, so again, kind of a thought positioning for you to jot down in your notes. How can you position your messaging and options to appeal to these consumers? Already, as small local businesses, that gives you a leg up because you're exactly the type of person that they're looking to support with their dollars. So you can take a minute, kind of write down this question or think about this, because this is going to be important for putting these findings into action. Okay. So another piece of this that's been really interesting is this idea about how we shop matters. E-commerce sales are up 56%. I don't think that this is gonna like bowl over anyone with shock that that's happened. But you'll also see that there's great variation between different industries. So something that's really unique, if you look at alcohol, 20% online, that's astronomical compared to previously it would be closer to 5 or 6, maybe even less than that. So within a matter of months, we're looking at a huge shift in terms of, obviously they're still shop. You can see for those that are brick and mortar, this is actually a really good, people are still purchasing things in store, and then there's sort of this mixed methodology, right, where you either purchase it online, you go pick it up in store, or delivery, or some sort of combination of that. But pure online sales, these are really, really high relative to where folks were, prior to all of this. So the big question is, will it last? Is it worth it for your company to really be investing in these new online strategies? Is this something that's going to be critical? Obviously, nobody can predict the future, but so in the startup community, we really talk about the diffusion of innovation theory. So this is kind of, this has been around for a while, but the idea is that one small segment of a population is, innovators, you have your early adopters. Those folks are the folks that were standing out in 2008 buying this iPhone that no one had any idea what it was, but they just wanted to be the first one to get it, right? And then you have the early majority. You have folks who are still want to be pretty hip and cool, so they're out there, they're kind of looking for new technologies. And then you have the late majority, and then you have the laggards, right? Those are folks who are still, you know, just barely switching to cell phones, you know, a couple years ago. So you have this curve, right? So what we've seen and what, you know, what's been really interesting, if you just take one example, Zoom, what we're using right now. So Zoom has actually been around from 2011. And if you talk to the founders, they thought that within, you know, a year or two, all work would be completely online. They anticipated all meetings would be online, but it really took this global pandemic to kind of get all of those, like, you know, groaning, creaking wheels of technology, those laggards and those late majorities, to really kind of shift over and feel comfortable using it. And now, you know, something like this is a format that, you know, pretty much everyone is now at least exposed to in some way. So what we've seen in past years is that when there is a big sort of, you know, kick in the pants for late majorities to start using this technology, people don't tend to revert. So it is very interesting that if the trend holds, it is likely that we will still be seeing more technology integration. We'll be seeing more online purchasing. We'll be seeing people that are comfortable getting their groceries online. They like this new way of doing it. So it's a theory, but it is sort of based on observational data from past years when there has been a big seismic shift in the way that people are using technology in their day-to-day life. So again, another little kind of thought exercise for you. What does your company need to integrate these new expectations of digital access? I think we all remember that moment in business where it was like, you know, some people had websites, and then it was like, well, if you don't have a website, like, you know, and then we're seeing that now you need to be able to offer more services, more robust websites where people can engage, interact, ask questions, or actually purchase things on there. So what will it take to sort of shift some of your services so that people can go to your website and they get that expectation that now they're used to, that you'd be able to access services through a digital platform? So just some quick things. So Startup Tucson recently did, we started a website called Tucson Shops Tucson. So we worked with a lot of businesses to move online into this sort of marketplace where you can go and you can shop all local. If you haven't checked out TucsonShopsTucson.com, check it out. It's a great way to support local businesses. But we had a lot of experience that many of them hadn't really, you know, it had been on their to-do list for a long time to sort of increase their online sales, but it sort of got pushed back on the back burner. So it's very common right now for people to be shifting their mindset. So just a little bit of data. So 73% of top online retails are running sales right now. So this is a good to try to motivate shoppers. 40% is the median. 90% of customers say free shipping is a top incentive. So you're seeing a lot of trends for more businesses offering this as a perk. If you are looking to sort of improve your website as it stands, I recommend this company. It's called hotjar.com. It's free. You can tag it onto your website and you can actually get a heat map and you can see how many people are scrolling all the way to the bottom, how many people are clicking on this button, and you can actually, it's really cool. You can see where people are excited on your website, where people are staying away from, and that helps you understand the user experience of your website. So just doing that simple thing and setting that up is going to give you a lot of information about where you might be able to improve your user experience. If down at the bottom is where you say shop now and you see that nobody's getting that far, okay, well, let's throw that button up onto the top. That's called sort of above the fold. So make sure that your calls to action are really clear and concise and visible. They're above the fold. Offer multiple checkout options. Use prompts and suggestions to increase sales. So there's a lot of things that you can do to amp up your online sales portion right now. If we do anticipate, as I do, that this is a worthy investment because this is going to continue. Okay, so rounding out kind of this portion before we get into discussion and questions, some action items for you to take away today. All right, so reevaluate your services. What hidden resources might you have to offer? And this is going to sort of set you up for the next part of the series, which is all about pivoting. So I heard a really interesting story. There was a pizza shop in New York City that obviously nobody was buying pizza. And they realized that their oven was actually the exact temperature that it needed to be to bend PPP masks, those like big face shields. So they just use their oven to start creating these face shields. And so that's nothing to do with pizza, but they had a hidden resource of their oven. And they said, okay, how can we transform the way that we're using this so that we're actually able to generate revenue in the short term so that we can go back to making pizzas, when this is all over. So there might be things that, talents that your team has that you haven't considered. So this is a really good time to say, what am I working with here? And how can I leverage some of these things in unexpected ways? The second piece is what we were talking about, targeting your messaging and services to customers that are in the best position to spend. There are some folks right now who are they don't have it. They're in serious struggle right now. So they're not going to be who you're going to target with your messages. So gather data, understand who am I currently serving and where can I start to see, reposition that. And then really position your branding to be local and values driven to really resonate and use that as a strength that you are a local business. And then again, get your online experiences and services running smoothly so that you're creating as many opportunities for folks to engage with your brand and your business as possible. If you, here's how you, so if you don't have that data and you want it, so if you want some observed behaviors, you can do lean experimentation, market analysis, like Hotjar. That's a really good way to get some observed behavior data. Understanding your customers' fears and hopes, you can use customer avatars, you can use customer interviewing, pain points and frustrations, use survey data, customer journey mapping, web scraping, and then really understanding where are people getting their information is going to be critical because that's where you're going to want to target your marketing and stretch those marketing dollars as effective as possible. So you're going to do channels, market analysis. If these are not things that you know how to do, please Startup Tucson. We would love to help you and support you. This is what a lot of our programming and education is focused on. We are delighted to have some incredible mentorship in that area from Kanisha, who is fabulous. So definitely reach out to us if these are not things that you currently know how to do. So kind of in summary, when it comes down to your business, sell thoughtfully. Obviously stay safe, and safety being the critical thing that you need to think about during this time. And then also change to meet your customers' needs. Change is just going to be part of this, and knowing when and how to change is really going to set you up for success. Some resources, I had mentioned Deloitte before. You can continue to go up there. They refresh that information frequently, so you can see where are people purchasing. You can watch the trends on that. The EY.com, they're super interesting. They had actually years ago run analysis on what would happen if there was a global pandemic in 2020. So they have a lot of information that they've actually been, thinking about for some time. So they're a really cool source on that. Locally, the Tucson Metro Chamber, they have these Knowledge of Noons, a ton of amazing resources there. Startup Tucson Score, SBDC, Connect Tucson is a great new website that sort of like really links you out to a lot of different resources locally. Pima County Library has a ton of information. Their research librarian is phenomenal for market analysis. And then I had mentioned Tucson Shops Tucson as an opportunity to support other local businesses currently. So that's that portion. So I think if you have questions, if you can throw those in the chat box, and we'll see what we can get to. Right?
Okay, Dre, thank you for that information. That was really eye-opening to go through and see some of those stats that we've all been wondering about. But what was really great is you put into perspective the percentage of consumers and the trends that are happening right now. I think right now we might, as business owners, we might be thinking, oh my gosh, no one is spending any money. Everyone's just stockpiling and hibernating, but that isn't really the case. I mean, basically what I heard you say is that about 1/3 of consumers out there, yes, they're being very frugal, they've reduced their spending, but about another 1/3 are staying the course and continuing to spend as they did pre-COVID. And then another 1/3 are still continuing to hibernate at home and actually increase their spending. So that to me says that it's all not gloom and doom for businesses out there, that there are consumers still spending. So it's a matter of finding those consumers, understanding as a business owner how your audience falls within those categories, and then segmenting them and understanding how to communicate with them, understanding the different mindsets and those buckets that they fall into. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that initially when we were, when this all started, everyone's like, oh, this is the Great Equalizer, it's impacting everyone, and it is impacting everyone, but definitely the data bears out that it's impacting people very differently. And I think that's exactly right, that there are people that this is a huge financial crisis for them, and they are kind of only one part, like you say, of the consumer base, and other folks they're able to very easily transition to line, so they're actually they're feeling more comfortable. They are what I think is interesting, and people are seeing their dollars differently, which is, I think, very interesting, that they're understanding that they are part of the economic drivers that has helped to kind of float their community. So they want to be strategic, and they want to spend their dollars where it matters most, which is with local businesses and with organizations that they feel are benefiting society. So that's a very positive, that's very hopeful for a lot of folks that are looking to connect with those consumers.
So it looks like we have a question from Diana. Diana asks, we're trying to do a 3D online silent auction to help replace our event income. Launches tomorrow. So she's asking, Dre, how do you see 3D and virtual going once everyone goes back to work? Still an increase?
There's questions on this. Some people are like, no, but that's why I wanted to put in that sort of growth curve. So a lot of folks are like, once people go back, they're going to be tired of their computers and they want to go hang out in person. So not all of these will be erased, but that doesn't really fit with what we've ever seen with how technology is used before. People are feeling like, oh, this is fantastic. Like, I can actually use my time really efficiently because I can get work done. I don't have to travel across town for meetings. I can still integrate this. So I think people are seeing there's a lot of pros to engaging in online events, and I think that if trends continue, they will likely be a number of people that are still be interested in doing that, who might, there's still a segment that what's interesting about that percentage that's spending the most, they are the most worried about the pandemic. So they are the ones who might actually be one of the last groups to actually go out and engage in live events. So that's very interesting to keep in mind as well. So they're very health conscious. So those might be the perfect audience that wants to continue to do online events. And, as a consumer, it's creating a lot of ease for that population who are younger and who are excited to engage online. So I anticipate that, I think it's very likely that people will still engage in online events more so than prior.
Diana, did that answer your question?
Yeah, great, thank you.
Good luck with that, Diana. I definitely want to check that out. If you want to throw the link to that, if it's ready, if it hasn't launched yet, but where we can find it, I would be very curious and excited to see that.
Awesome, will do, thanks.
Mr. Koval, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, I can ask it. So, so if a business is looking to reopen, in your mind, what are the most important messages for them? Is it sales? Is it pricing? Is it unique opportunity? Or is it safety measures that they're taking to keep the potential customers safe?
All of the above. I think there is sort of broad consensus from the data and the interviews that I was looking at that people want to know that the businesses that they're going to have been thoughtful about this, that there are sort of visible signs that this is a safe place to be. Again, you'll see a lot of the top retailers are throwing a lot of sales out there to incentivize and motivate purchases. So that's also going to be right at the forefront, that people are looking for the opportunity to get some bargains, as long as they feel, you know, that they're not throwing caution totally into the wind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Dre, I had read a stat that I thought was really interesting, and I'd like to get your perspective on it. Today, 1/3 of consumers strongly agree with the suggestion that they will reappraise the things that they value most and not take certain things for granted anymore. And more than 1/4 say that they will pay more attention to what they consume and what impact that has on the environment within their household, their family. So perhaps in our post-crisis world, we will see consumers becoming more mindful of their choices. And so clearly this hinges around values. So if you were to give advice to businesses on the call, how they can realign, reassess their own company values, and then communicate with their segmented audiences to align on shared values, since values and purpose are so much at the top of consumers' minds today. So give us your thoughts on that.
Yes, so that is very interesting. And just to follow up on that, 46% of those say that they're going to continue to do that. Like they anticipate that that's a trend, just like what you're saying. I'm curious if that will last, because so the reason that they are is kind of, the reasons that they give that they're doing this is because they're like, hey, I'm seeing how important my dollars are for supporting my community. This is one thing I can do. People are feeling very caring of their community. And one thing, they have a lot of time right now to do that research, to do that kind of piece when they are shopping, as opposed to kind of more, impulse time. So I'm curious if how long that will last. I think that it's a worth investment to always look at your values as an organization and to put those forward, because we do know that sort of millennials and even to more Gen Z, values are super important to where they spend their dollars. So this is, again, in sort of the long curve of trends, consumers are getting more conscious of the dollars that they spend, and they really see, in the research that I read, locally made, owned is really resonating with people. Local families is really resonating with people. Environmental concerns and impact is really resonating with people in that particular demographic and age. And I would probably add to that, people are demanding social consciousness as well, and responding to injustices in their communities. So I would say that that's probably there's sort of broad support within this population for reforms and social justice. So that's new since the research has actually interviewed them. So I would anticipate in the next Deloitte one, that might be another message that's resonating.
I also saw another stat that and I go back to a statement that my dad used to make growing up. He used to say, waste not, want not. And I heard that over and over and over growing up. And the research is suggesting right now that consumers want a waste nothing scenario. So they're living like that in their own households, but they also demand that of the businesses that they're buying from. They want to know that the entire supply chain is not wasteful in terms of production practices. They also, more now than ever, are favoring US made products, for example. So, and then of course, you mentioned this earlier in your presentation, consumers' preferences are growing to prefer shopping from local shops, restaurants, and brands that they feel are local, but that they also feel are frugal and not wasteful in terms of how they operate their business and deliver their goods and services.
Adding to that is they are willing to pay a premium for that as well. So a larger trend, which is exaggerated by the pandemic, has been this move towards more minimalism, sort of trying to move away from fast fashion or things that are what you're saying, wasteful, and that there is evidence that they are putting dollars behind that and willing to pay a little bit more for a product that they see as something that they are investing in that will stick around for a while. And so that's been a moment so previously it was sort of like more talk and less actual how people were spending, and now it's been interesting emerging that folks are actually putting their dollars behind that. And so there's been alignment of where dollars are being spent and also what they're saying they value and is important to them. So
absolutely.
And for a lot of businesses, a lot of businesses are actually already doing that, because if you care about your businesses, you care about your employees, oftentimes it's the right thing to do for your business. And so many business owners are already doing it. It's a matter of kind of like recognizing that and promoting that and putting that message out there that this is something that you've been doing for 25 years. We've actually been using, this really great product or this service. We've been considerate of this. So it's a lot about kind of that public facing. I do think it's interesting. I think we've all seen those commercials where sort of national brands have been trying to reposition themselves as local if they have a franchise, to remind people that these are in some ways locally owned businesses, because they want to make sure that they're making a clear communication to that value.
Absolutely. I've seen a lot of that as well. So are there any other questions? Looks like we have one from my business partner, Carrie Stratford. Carrie, your question.
Hi, Dre. I just wondered if you have some examples of ways that startup is helping startups or businesses in the community adjust to what's going on right now. Can you give us some inspiration of some of the things you're doing to help folks adjust?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really interesting because we've seen a lot of these changes, and my colleagues on the call can attest, like in vivo. So we've just seen a huge amount of new demand from folks who are looking to start businesses, who are looking to build a side hustle or expand their side hustle into something that's a little bit more lucrative. And so we've actually added courses, something that usually run once a month, we're running twice a month, so that we're really trying to meet the increased demand. We have, and we've put everything online, which has been very interesting. It's really created a high level of engagement. And so we actually have some best practices that we've learned in our process of doing this as well. But adding courses that are specific to this, okay, how are you, really a lot of these technical skills that intimidate people. So really, how are you doing calls to action? How are you doing your marketing? How are you doing digital? Like a lot of helping folks one-to-one on that. And then, like I said, with the Tucson Shops Tucson website, we launched it because we wanted consumers to have a really easy way to access local businesses, but we really also saw it as a learning tool, because we've really, for each of the websites that are part of that, we offer sort of going through their website and saying like, okay, here's how you can improve the customer experience. Here's how you can increase sales just from this. We partnered with the Terry Luger Center for Retailing for really leveraging a lot of knowledge to help businesses make that transition to online sales. We've been really excited about this idea of sort of these micro online businesses. We brought in an expert who's was featured in the New York Times talking about how important small online businesses is for protecting communities in times of economic crisis. There was a huge buffering impact. So we're really trying to facilitate that process. We've been throwing ideas about how can we create sort of moving people over that technical hump. Startup Tucson has talked about, should we just build a starter website for folks and just help them launch it? Because that seems to be a huge hurdle, that it's fairly easy. There's so many resources to do it yourself, but just having someone walk you through that process, sort of DIY your brand is a big topic that we're building out right now. And then we've expanded our partnerships with, for example, Osaka, who's working with creative entrepreneurs, because right now, with gallery sales, marketplaces, we're expanding our work with food entrepreneurs, because we're trying to address where are communities that their primary source of sales was face-to-face, and how can we help them make that digital transformation and be a part of that for them with really tactical solutions. So that's kind of been a lot of our strategy.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, great work that Startup Tucson is doing. That's so impressive to hear all that you're providing our community, such valuable services that are greatly needed. So thank you.
You have a great team. So thank
Absolutely,
you so much.
to everyone on the call. So do we have any other questions from our participants today? Okay, so before we wrap up today, I would love, oh yes, we have another question. Michael.
This is kind of germane to the conversation, but kind of not. I'm going to ask it anyway.
I would expect nothing less, Michael.
I'm curious. So prior to the pandemic, online sales were trending up. About 4 years ago, there was about 12% of the marketplace was online. As recently as like the beginning of the year, it was up to about 15, 16% online. So it was obviously trending up. But commercial real estate, we're starting to place sort of experiences in their spaces that you couldn't get online, right? So, restaurants and gyms and places like Round One, going into the old Sears space. So you're seeing that sort of transition in the commercial real estate space. Well, then you had this pandemic, and commercial real estate, or the companies that were replacing some of those brick and mortar, those experiences had to be closed down because of the pandemic. So it affected them similarly to how more online sales were affecting, your traditional mom and pops. So I was curious as to, have you seen any information or read any articles about how this could affect commercial real estate, and, do the mom and pops, just kind of transfer to, as much online as possible?
This is where you see sort of like raging debates, because, you definitely have people that have some data under their belt that say, no, people have, through this time, they've appreciated the value of human connection even more so. They are, as soon as they feel safe, they are ready and willing to go out and are really eager. So there's definitely data that supports, I think we can all say that we definitely value, like, oh man, I just wish I could go to a restaurant. It would be amazing to have, there's definitely like a collective value that we all have understood, and that we're not taking for granted anymore. But I think that's where you want to start teasing out the customer, right? And exactly which segments, because when you look at it, the segments are all very different. So I don't think that you can make like a blanket statement across the board. I think that in things that sort of seem easier to just get out the way, online grocery shopping, that's definitely, people feel consensus that online grocery shopping, delivery, people are feeling that's convenient and easy, and that was maybe inevitable with Amazon and Whole Foods, sort of predicting this a while ago. So there are maybe segments where you're gonna see, people are like, let's just take that task off my table, versus experiential value added places where people want to connect and they see that as critical part of their experience and quality of life. Those are probably going to be slightly different, and I do think that regardless, folks should still be preparing for moving online and creating, I think what it mostly showed is that there's a ton of vulnerability for businesses that don't have multiple revenue streams. So regardless, you should be thinking about, how can I put you know, passive income into my business model? How can I make sure that I'm not just relying on one source of contact with my customer? How can I build in these multiple things as redundancies, if nothing better, you know? So I think that there's no harm, and there's definitely only benefits for expanding your revenue model to include online sources. And then you've got your bases covered.
Great question. Thank you, Michael. So lots of data that we've talked about on our call today. If anyone would like to share just one takeaway that you got as it relates to your organization, whether it be for-profit, not-for-profit, in learning how our consumers are acting during COVID and what they might be doing post-COVID, at least according to what some of the early surveys are saying. One takeaway, who would like to volunteer? One takeaway.
I would just think that you know, the point about that there's people in different categories about how they feel about things right now, and that you've got to blend a message for that, I'd say is a really important takeaway, in the sense, I think if we all look at our own staffs, you can see varying levels of how they feel about reentry or this or that as things open up. Even if for some of us it'd be incredibly wonderful if things would open up, you know, in the sense of revenue stream, there's still this concern of safety. So I thought it was really nice how you laid that out in 3 buckets. Plus, I do think the last statement that she just made on having multiple revenue streams, because I think people now see just how vulnerable we are, and that could be from a lot of things we haven't thought about in the past. You know, we think of politics, we think of changes in politics could make us feel that investments may not be safe or this or that. Or you could think about things that happen in the natural world, such as the fires we have going around right now in the Catalina Mountains. But then all of a sudden now a virus has brought something into play that we never anticipated. So I didn't see that coming, you know, and so now you realize that you've got to have these multiple streams. So I thought that was extremely important, what she said there at the end. So.
And I would add to what you've said, really understanding the shifting consumer values now, and staying very closely in touch with how those shift over time. You really need to understand that as a business owner, how you're engaging and communicating with your audiences, and how and where you have shared values, because consumers now more than ever are paying attention to what your organization's values are, the brands, the products and services that you're selling, what they represent. So that's a key takeaway as well, among many key takeaways today on our during our time together.
Linda, I would say for me, it was the information about the third. That's extremely important data to understand how consumers are spending during this time. Because businesses need to use that data to their advantage. So that was my takeaway.
And it's all not gloom and doom.
Agree. I was going to say the same thing, that it isn't gloom and doom out there. There are still those businesses and individuals who still want to purchase goods and who are still okay today. They still want to move on, and it's good to see that information and that data, that is still what's happening out there, and we can definitely utilize that to our best benefit. So thank you.
I also like the resources, using your what you're good at, or other things you're good at, to create revenue for your company, whether it be personnel. I think that's, as I talk to companies and what I do, so many recreating themselves in a way. These other things I do, I mean, from doing heart machines to doing sanitizer. I mean, it's or you were saying with the pizza place doing face shields. I mean, it's pretty amazing, these companies, what they've done. So I think, again, just thinking along that road, what else can we do well that we wouldn't generally think in our business. So I think that was really interesting.
Great. Okay, anybody else before we wrap up our Knowledge at Noon today? Okay, well, Dre, thank you so much for your time today and the information that you gave us. Your insights, I believe, will be very helpful to everyone on the call. And for future participants who see the recording, which will be available, correct?
Yes, I'll get that
following
from
our
Dave.
call?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, well, thank you, everyone.
Cool. Thank you so much for inviting me. Everybody stay tuned for the rest of the series. Who's coming up next? Do we have? Is it Mike?
Yep. It's going to be Mitch Piesick next week on June 16th. If you haven't registered, it's going to be the strategic planning, winning business strategies during after a pandemic. So he'll be next week. If you haven't registered, please do so. Also, just real quick, if you know of a startup business that would like to become a member of the chamber, we have some special rates now. So please contact Carrie Gilchrist, who's on this call right now. You can email her at cgilchrist@tucsonchamber.org. It's CGILCHRIST@tucsonchamber.org. And we'll see you all next week. Thank you so much, Linda. Thank you, Dre. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Everybody, bye-bye.
Okay,
Thanks so
bye-bye.
much.